Thanks, Chris. So, what do we got going on? Crowdfunding this week. Now, we're skipping a week. We're not going to do every news week combined with upcoming crowdfunding. There's just not enough news to talk about. But next week, we'll have stuff. Don't worry. So, what's actually coming the first week in February? February is already looking better than January. If you really want to know my top for the whole month, though, check out the video earlier in the week, because you're only going to get snippets here of the great commentary that this second tier YouTube channel gives you on a weekly basis. That's right. Moving up in the world. So, what do we got going on? Well, first and foremost, one of my 10 most anticipated interesting games of February, we're just going to start with it, because actually 3 of them are launching this week for various reasons. I was all set to go with this video, finish editing, everything ordered, everything taken care of, and then all of a sudden popped up on my feed, CMON's A Song of Fire and Ice Tactics is now within 5 days launching on the 8th as well. So the other big news about this is almost all of these games this week, these big name games, this and like 3 others that we're talking about in this video, all launching over on GameFound. But more importantly, like CMON is defecting over to GameFound. That's a significant chunk. Kickstarter, when are you going to up your game? You can't. You're not doing it. You don't care. You just, But, right? Now, the interesting thing, as I talked about in the news video, I said this was coming soon. I didn't think it was coming this soon, though. It's a 2-player skirmish game of A Song of Fire Ice. Game of Thrones, if you will. Your George R. Martins are coming back to the tabletop. But does this mean their other Song of Fire and Ice game is completely dead? Doesn't appear to be compatible whatsoever. And do you want to spend $100 on a freaking plastic dragon? Well, because CMON's in the massivatures game now, not just the miniatures, folks. Cool massivatures or not. Let me pull up the page, though, because it's worth looking at. So here it is, right? 5 days, 16 hours in the time of me filming this. 7,000 people following. Gonna be blowing up. And there's more on the page than when I talked about it in the news video from last weekend. But guess what, guys? Following, you can get a dice tray. Woo! There's the dragon, though. There's the frickin' dragon. Who chasing the dragon on this one, are we? And again, the miniatures look awesome, right? But there's no videos up here yet. It doesn't have a Board Game Geek entry yet. And I mean, great scenario-based systems, but is this sort of like the Mythic Battles Ragnarok style of situation you've got here? Pledge without banners, no daily rewards. Why the deuce would you get that unless you like are not in North America or mainstream Europe to be interested in a pledge that's not going to get you it? Because $20 more is going to get you everything else to go along with it, including a terrain pack. So again, holy F-balls. Okay, that's $260. I wasn't looking at this beforehand at all, right? So first time reactions here. That's $160. I was joking about it costing $100, folks. $160. We saw it with Galactus. We saw it with Cthulhu. They're spreading it even further. I'm sure there'll be some tiny little scenario to go along with this. I mean, granted, it's much cooler to look at and have in a room than those other 2 that I mentioned, but I don't freaking know. And the other thing I worry about too, right, is that you're looking at this, if we scroll back up here, pledge without banners. You're getting this like core box. You're getting this little reward box. You're getting this little train box. But what I'm seeing down here is you've got kind of like 2 factions. 2 factions, which means, right, you know how many factions there are in families in Game of Thrones if you're familiar with it all. There's a bunch! Spoilers, right? That's not a spoiler. If you haven't, you deserve to be spoiled. What I'm saying, though, is expect a freaking metric ton of expansions potentially. Maybe not all in the crowdfunding. Maybe that's what they're going to do with retail. But also, maybe they're just going to have it here as well. Crowdfunding exclusive. Confronting a legend. Yeah, you're going to get a little scenario with it. Grand Arena, whatever. Sure, if I could paint like that, I'd probably get this too. None of this stuff was even closely, remotely out there previously, though. So this is very much reminding you of Mythic Battles in a slightly different manner. But again, for $80, I'm hoping I'd be able to get like 2 other factions in this little stretch goal box that they're going. Stretch goals, unreveals. Let's not kid ourselves here, because they're all pre-planned anyway. So now you can see why I'm a little bit like, holy crap, Batman. This might be taking me off of my no pledge CMON, unless it's Marvel or DC United situation. for this year so far already. And we're talking about the beginning of freaking February. And the other clue with that too is that at the beginning description at the top of the page there that I didn't show, take control of legendary characters, which means, folks, where's the lie? You're going to see a ton more, guaranteed, almost like 4 or 5 expansions with every CMON campaign. It's just going to be how much deluxified expansions are there going to be, how much non-deluxified. But that's why I had to throw this at the beginning of the video, because holy freaking cow, Batman, right? Yeah. Then let's talk about the other one that came out of nowhere. No announcement whatsoever as well. Same night, same time as me getting the announcement for CMON is the next up from Gryphon Games. And it's got a 3-weight on Board Game Geek. Oh, you're probably salivating if you're one of those people who's put out the other Lacerda games, right? But no, this is from the folks behind Rococo. And this is actually Cookie Cutter? Cookie Cutter? Cookie Cutter? Chris, are you interested in this? Yes. And that's because deck building resource management, though. I mean, making cookies with recipes, being a master baker. Anyway, I'm not doing that joke on the channel. Medium weight, 60 minutes or less. Choose your ingredients, decorate, and make your cookies for cash. Baking Champion includes a challenging solo mode. I don't know. I'm intrigued. No content out there whatsoever. No hype, no announcement. And unlike CMON's page, when I would pull this one up for you, but I won't, I'll save you the time and the clicks, it's got 130 people. So Gryphon, you're known for the heavy Lacerdas, but, maybe you should give a little bit more marketing to the lighter stuff, because, you can still get a ton of people. Mechanically speaking, this speaks to me more than their other ones, but aesthetically, I still have a little bit mixed feeling, because it's definitely a different art style as a whole. But we'll see what it comes. It's Aeon's End, the Descent, right? Aeon's End. Deck building, one of the best fantasy-esque deck building situations, or more innovative of the last couple years as a whole. I'm not going to say totally and utterly innovative, but they've really, sort of redefined what people are expecting out of a deck builder as a whole, for me at least. Right? Speaking for everybody else. As I always do, get myself in trouble. But the question is, with another standalone expansion, with the Descent, with whatever new mode that they appear to be adding based on the vague Board Game Geek description that we get, well, who knows, right? I have too much Aeon's End. I couldn't get into Astronauts for the same thing. I said, well, this is slightly different, but it's not different enough adjacent that I can actually really feel like I'm going to be getting my money's worth because I'm going to play it over the other. I don't know. Again, it's on my sort of, if I ever, have a chance to acquire it, I'll get it. But otherwise, I have too much of Aeon's End in the first place to want to seek stuff out as well. And so then that leads to the other, sort of elephant in the room with Aeon's End, right? It's been power creep. It's really had some power creep. Some things like the LCGs have really, shown us that you don't have to have power creep. You can have creep, but maybe not as much. And so that was the thing I sort of didn't really like with the legacy versions, the campaign legacy versions that they've put out previously. I reviewed Legacy of Gravehold on my channel earlier. And again, my big criticism is give me something new that's not creeping. And that's the tricky part, right? Like, how do you balance that? I play Marvel Puzzle Quest on my phone for I've been playing that game for almost 10 years. Don't think about that for a second, how many days that is. But there's creep there too. But they're also trying to do new innovative things without creeping at the same time. And ultimately, those two things start to bash each other. You can't do one without the other. And that's where I think this dilemma lies. I think it'd be a great, probably, standpoint to get in on, right? If you don't have any Aeon's End and it's always been tickling your fancy, maybe go here instead. And that'd be fine, because you don't know what you maybe didn't miss in the first couple standalone expansions, because standalone expansion, almost everything they've done has been standalone expansion, which again, I understand from a retail business standpoint, but from a consumer standpoint, it just isn't terribly friendly anymore, especially when I have 5 copies of the same mage over many expansions. So I have mixed feelings. I would love to get the excitement rush of backing something like this again. I cannot necessarily see myself doing it for those reasons. So a quick little update on Aeon's End Descent. I pulled up the GameFound page. GameFound, right? Indie Board and Cards is going over to GameFound too. So not only are they cooping? No. coup. That's a Liegeism right there. You can laugh at me in the comment section. I don't really care. I'll leave that part in just for the sake of making fun of myself. It's a coup going on here, and with some of the page now, they have some elements on it. Literally elements, because they've got elemental tokens that you're going to be placing on enemies, minions, or nemesises, and when resolved, you get positive effects, like you can electrify, immolate, or venom them. Venom them? I mean, that's their wording, not me, folks. So they've got a whole bunch of stuff about the old Aeon's End on the page, but that's literally the only thing new. So again, I won't waste your time pulling it up, but check it out, because they've got 5,000 people following. So give me something new with this Nemesis module that they're bringing in that you can, you know, sort of use rivals in. Okay, sure. The second game up, also on my more anticipated list from earlier this week, right? It's been a long week, folks. It's been a very long week. Convseras, a solo game from Scott Almes, where you're fishing. Ocean nature theme, right? I told you, 2023, 2024, it's going to be all of the nature, anthropomorphic, animal-based, whatever you want to call it, style of things. We're still seeing it. And this is taking a different spin on sort of a bag building, bag pulling, fishing, getting all of your resources, manufacturing, tinning, but also not decimating the population in the first place so that you can continue to do so over something like 12 rounds or something along those lines. And I think it looks kind of cool. And I say that as a non-solo person, as I often say on this channel. But if you're a solo person, you know, and you like a little bit of push your luck, press your luck, maybe this one looks like it could be for you. Scott Almes has got some great solo games. Button Shy has a bunch of his stuff. I'm really just kind of intrigued to see what it's got going on. You know, probably very little chance of me being actually interested in backing it, right? Sort of gives me vibes in a different way of Legacy of You from Garphill, where doing something different, doing something that's going to push the envelope a little bit and a little bit different player count. And is it going to appeal to non-solo players? Probably not. You know what? It's okay. It doesn't have to appeal. You know, conversely, always the multiplayer games are getting slammed because, oh, I can't play it solo. You know, the auction game that requires, you know, whatever counts of players to bid on stuff, right? People are, I can't play this solo. Well, yeah, you can't. You just can't play certain things solo. But you know what? I also think, conversely, like I just was going to make the point of, that sometimes the solo things don't have to have multiplayer things either. And I'm completely okay with that as a mainly multiplayer game person. I'm not going to shout in the comment section that this game needs a multiplayer. Pound my fist on the table. I'm afraid like it's going to be too loud on the microphone. I'm not tech savvy. So that's second up. Third up, I just saw this. 25th Century Games just announced that Hamster Roll. You familiar with this game at all? It's an import game. Hamster Roll. Yeah. It's kind of like what it seems. And as the Board Game Geek description says, you read that right, or you heard that right. You have a wheel. You have a wooden wheel that you have to balance stuff on the inside of, right? Dexterity based. Giant hamster wheel. I mean, it's what you see is what you get. But you can't get the game for, you know, less than about like 50 or 60 bucks. I think Board Game Bliss is one of the few places that imports it to North America. But 25th Century has now said that, you know, we're going to bring it over, we're going to bring it cheaper, and we're going to give you 4 new wooden pieces to go along with it. Actually, they said 4, but it's actually 16, sorry. And so, I don't know. Are you intrigued? I mean, the lowest price on Amazon right now is 70 bucks. Chad, 25th Century Games, said that they're going to bring it over for cheaper, including the shipping that's going to go along with it for you. So if you've ever had this sort of very niche game on your radar, well, you know what? I like these kind of strange dexterity games, right? Nekojima, right? If you missed my top 10 of the year, Nekojima was, I think, what, number 5? And per a couple of the compilations, because, you know, someone on Reddit posted their unique analysis for their asymmetric website, and someone else has a different board of the game, and someone else has a different website, Board Game of the Year website, and then the meta list over on Board Game Geek. You know, I'm pretty sure I was the only one to list Nekojima, just like I was the only one to list Race for the Raft. But, and 2 others. I think I had 4 that nobody else included. I told you guys, like I wasn't kidding. When I, you know, went out there on things, I went out there on things. So my taste is, well, I've been called peculiar plenty of times in my life, but that's, again, that's a whole nother section of things. So that's also going to be very of interest. And again, it's not a super heavy game, folks. You're paying for what you get. Do you like that sort of thing or not? It's not going to appeal to you, again, if it's not your ilk in the first place. And then sort of going all over the place here, Queen's latest, the Stefan Feld collection, games 7 and 8, Kathmandu and Nassau. Both dice-based systems that are going to be bringing something new, because neither of these are based off of the previous games. that he's put out, right? They're not like revisions, rehashes, Amsterdam sort of situations, if you will, from the previous, like first 3. So, I mean, I guess the one that's actually seeming like it's gotten the most attention of those first 4 is still the one that wasn't based off of anything, right? Like Marrakesh. But I also don't want to pay an arm and a leg for a deluxified Euro I know nothing about. So if it comes to retail, which again, Marrakesh, arguably again, the most popular one that I've seen making the rounds, finally got like a 3rd different edition from De Vere, which was still like $55-$60 or so, which, that's not cheap nowadays. And so I can look elsewhere for things that I know I'm going to like in the first place. So that's going to be the interesting test. Do either of these actually intrigue you? If you have any of the other ones, if you were a 1 through 4 or 1 through 6, are you going to go in, sunk cost fallacy sort of situation? I got to have them all. Because they're going to be offering the deluxified. Each of them has their own coins. Each of them has their own like little deluxe meeple upgrades, whatever it was. I only have Hamburg sitting over there, which really, just, I don't know. It was just disappointing for me. I need to get rid of it. I'm not interested in it anymore, I don't think. So, which reminds me, I think I'm going to do another, like, just like with Actual LOL, he did the 100 games I'm purging. I did that video last month of games I'm thinking about purging. And so I'm just going to tell you games I'm actually going to purge, though, not games that are on my, sort of chopping block, if you will. Because again, I think that's just interesting to talk about, because I have a whole Calyx right there that I would just be happy to, get rid of for, 40 cents on the dollar. So that is going to be the big question. Nassau, Kathmandu. Kathmandu is going to be more of a dice-placed area. It sort of gives me vibes of Wayfarers, just on the vague description about having to go through various areas racing to get to the end, and then having the most victory points at the end, I believe. And Nassau, it's got like a 2-phase system where you're going to be like prepping your pirate ships and getting everything you need. And then like the second phase is like utilizing them at some extent, maybe fighting creatures. I don't really know. Again, the descriptions are not very in-depth. And the other problem I have with it is, if you want to entice people, Queen has not been as more forthcoming with some of the rules and some of the actual, like, this is the game sort of stuff. I was really interested in the one from like 2 years ago, Alhambra the Red Palace, because I've never had an Alhambra game. I've never actually played Alhambra, truth be told. And so that one really intrigued me, because I've read, I've watched, but I've never hands-on. And the Pledge Manager was almost closed before the rulebook was out. Like, a year after the campaign ended. And so if it's going to take you that long, no wonder not many of these recently have been. You just have to adapt and stay with the times. Name recognition, especially with the first one, really paid off. But subsequently, and again, I'm even-handed, even-keeled, pirates, even-keeled. See what I did there? Let's see. Liege thinking, planning ahead there? No, I don't plan ahead. But the more recent crowdfunding campaigns, you need some of this stuff. You need to change with the times. You need to have some of this stuff. People just aren't willing to back a lot anymore, because there's so much more information on the some stuff that they are interested in. The some stuff that they are interested in that doesn't have it, it's going to just fall secondary almost completely, unless it's got some massive, massive swell of IP, nostalgia, recognition, or FOMO. And these games don't have any of that right now. So, show us more. Show us more, and I'm happy to see how I feel then. But otherwise, it's hard to back something along those lines. And then we have Trailblazer. Now, you remember this game. Well, nope, not the Bitewing one, though. The one with the little tiles and the cards and making the little routes of your little tracks around the campsite. No, this is Trailblazer from Mariposa Games. This was the other Euro style, the John Muir Trail, and now we're getting the Arizona Trail. Standalone expansion, completely different setting, completely different area. National Park, Sonoran Desert, Saguaro National Park, Sonoran Desert, and Ponderosa Pine Forest through the Grand Canyon. You're, going through terrain, flora, and fauna found in Arizona. How do you feel about Arizona? Pattern building, set collection, 8 weeks of rounds that you're trying to build a reserve and getting the most gold, it sounds like. I mean, the aesthetic, especially with the first one, was very impressive. And I don't really know a whole lot about the gameplay specifics of the first John Muir Trail, but it's got a 7.8 on Board Game Geek with only 500 ratings. So again, it was one of those that I think people really liked at the time, but does it really stand up? Do people want more of it? not something I've ever heard talked about. Again, it's outside of my normal circle of interest, if you will. But just like, you know, a little bit of mea culpa from yesterday's video, you know, with Last Light, like, I'm willing to look at this stuff, folks, because, you know, as I said on my top 10 and top 20 videos, sometimes you just play this stuff and you find out, yeah, you know what, Chris, I was right. This one was clearly not for me. But sometimes then you play something like Ra, or you play something like Summoner Wars 2 for me, or any of those other games like Lacuna or Gosu X, which Gosu X, that was another one that was not on anybody else's list. You guys are all like, Chris, what are you talking about? That you go, wow, this really impressed me. I came out of nowhere. And that's, you know, screwing Board Game Geek ratings or other people's ratings, right? You know, because I think sometimes, myself included, we take too much stock in what other people think of games and we let it predispose us one way or the other. Truth be told, I'm one of those people. But at the same time, I'm starting to recognize my own biases, trying not to let that, you know, influence it as much, because I'm not going to be perfect on that side of things either. So what's the difference going to be when you have an expansion like this? How much different is it going to be? Is this a 2.0 version of Trailblazer? It's more route worker placement management set collect, but why this one over the previous one? Can you have both? We're seeing a lot of this striking on previous, you know, base mechanisms, but if this is Dune Imperium Uprising compared to Dune Imperium, Nemesis compared to Nemesis Lockdown compared to Nemesis Retaliation, you may have your flavor that you prefer to stick with, vanilla, chocolate, or strawberry, and not really feel the need, not like you wouldn't like it, but, you know, you like one, you usually just go after one. You don't always go after the Neapolitan. So that's what we're looking at here, potentially. So that's the big ones. Those are the big ones this week. We got a couple, you know, relatively good-sized ones each and every week. And just like with Cryptic Nature and a few of the others that launched in January, sort of not out of nowhere, but just surprising us. Altered TCG, right? This past week, right? You were super excited by that. There's just stuff that comes out that's just cool to talk about, and stuff that's not on my radar, stuff that just comes out of nowhere. And I like that. And speaking of that, I'll talk about it in the news video. I'll talk about it in just a whole nother segue of things. CMON appears to have defected over to GameFound now with their upcoming Song of Fire and Ice Tactics game. I'm really intrigued by that because a two-player skirmish, folks. Now, miniature based with a huge freaking massive $100 dragon, not as much, because I can Summoner Wars to it for, you know, almost all of the Summoner Wars for that price, but that one's going to be the tough FOMO this month. But tune in for more deets, because your boy is going to make them up as he goes, because I don't get insider information, but I love talking about it regardless. So that's all I got. You know, going to play stuff this weekend. Got a couple review copies. I got to get to the table. Kid had 2 birthday parties. Middle kid had 2 birthday parties last weekend. It basically sucked out all the time for me getting anything done by myself. So we have, and I think I'll do maybe a video after this. I'm just going to pull out some big boxes, ramble about it, and then show you my thoughts and impressions in a later video. I got my copy of ISS Vanguard. I got my copy of Mythic Battle Ragnarok. I got a copy of the new Kingdom Rush game. I got a copy of Roll and Write Records game from Inside Up. So those are the big ones that are coming out soon. I've got final videos also done of World Wonders and later this month Sea Dragons as well, coming to crowdfunding. Spoilers on those two. Big stuff. Big fan of those games. So that's all I got. Have a great day. You know, we're inching closer to 10,000. I think we're just under 9,600 because I accidentally looked earlier this evening. I got nothing. Work has been horrible slog this week. So, and got nothing else going on. Just 3-year-old potty training stuff, right? If you know, you know. Peace out. Stay classy. See you around.